Anyone who looked up the reportage of H&M's opening in Melbourne last week will know that Australians have an insatiable appetite for international retailers. While domestic retailers are struggling to get their footing in the market, international retailers in the Australian market are growing. And there's no finer example than that with some of the panellists that we have on stage today. We have the iconic CEO, Patrick Schmidt. Is that how I pronounce it?
That's absolutely right.
Yes. The co-founder of Boohoo, Carol Kane, and who just corrected me. Boohoo recently floated on the London Stock Exchange, and I said, congratulations on the $300 million initial public offering. And she goes, oh, that's old hat. We actually raised £580 million. So big player there. We also have the ASOS Senior Marketing and Communications Manager for Australia, Joe Shapland. Did I pronounce that correctly? I'm on fire here. And we have branding agent Andy Verbance, whose clients have included Saks, Bloomingdale's and Net-a-Porter. So keeping in line with the international theme, I'm going to direct my first question to the only male on the panel, the iconic CEO, Patrick. Now, very excitingly, the iconic secured exclusive partnership with two of the most iconic high street brands in the UK, River Island and Next.
Actually, New Look.
New Look, there's my first mistake. So I just want to know, how did these partnerships come about, and is this a strategy moving forward? Because I know when River Island made its debut at the Melbourne Fashion Festival, within 2 hours of the runway, they sold 500 items online. So huge appetite for international brands in Australia. Is this a strategy moving forward, and how did you secure them?
So I think maybe speaking on behalf of the brands like New Look and also Dorothy Perkins, which we just launched, and also River Island first. Wow. Obviously, these brands know that Australia is a huge market, and thanks to ASOS mainly, they have been selling very, very well in Australia. But I think talking to these brands, it is not enough for them to just be shipping into Australia with 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 days of shipping time with no real presence locally in Australia. So I think they were always thinking about setting up a local operation, and given that online in the UK is so much bigger than it is in Australia, I think they think online first. That's why they obviously basically investigate which partner to go with locally. There's not that many local fashion online companies around. We have a pretty good customer experience with 3-hour delivery, with local customer service. So I think in the end, we were talking for a long time, but from the start, we knew that this is going to work out as a great partnership, because there are great brands, there is demand which is proven, which is kind of the best thing you can have in an unproven business case, having something which is already selling on different sites. So we always knew that this is going to work, and we're very excited to have them on board.
Did you approach them for the partnership, or did they approach you?
We were talking to them as a group, not only Iconic, but also our sister companies for a long time, so probably since about 2 years. But they were quite keen, so we approached them, but they were very open to talks.
Fantastic. And you mentioned, obviously, the success of the Iconic, and I know Carol mentioned this earlier privately, that, the growth of ASOS and the sort of pioneering ways that it opened up online retail to consumers has been hugely important to your own success. Joe, can you tell me just how important the Australian market is to the ASOS business model, and what you credit for its success here? Because I think everyone in the audience has either heard of ASOS or purchased, or both.
I hope so. Australia is a really important market for ASOS. In fact, it was one of the very first local language websites we launched for the business. It's the very first international office we launched over 2 years ago now, and we remain the #2 market for ASOS outside of the UK. So it's an incredible feat when you consider our population size. We're about to be eclipsed by our friends in the US, but again, that goes to show what an amazing feat it has been and performance has been here for us to hold them at bay for that long. And it's recognition that the Aussie consumer has really embraced the ASOS brand. And I think ultimately, what we delivered was meeting a genuine customer need. Australian consumers had seen through the internet all those global trends. They wanted access to them. It was very hard to come by here in the local market. And so they craved newness. They're, you know, very fashion forward, and ASOS supplied a solution to that, I think, and that's really where that organic growth came from.
Yep. And something that I've noticed with international retailers in the Australian market is that you're not just pushing the international name, you're actually partnering with local businesses, local events, taking out local advertising, so it actually feels like you're part of the Australian market. And I think one of the new strategies that you guys are doing are launching pop-up stores at Australian university campuses. So how important are local activations to the ASOS business model in Australia?
Extremely important. We won't succeed without localization. The business, one of our key pillars is, you know, true globalization, and what that means is whilst we remain true to the ASOS ethos and positioning, we absolutely need to be relevant to our local consumers. And we have a local roadmap. That's why we have a team here. It's important for us to interpret ASOS and make sure it's appropriate for our customers here. In terms of direct activations, it's an interesting space because we are a pure play online retailer, and we primarily engage with our audiences in a social and digital capacity, and that's where we love to innovate. But we recognize that our consumers absolutely respond so well to a tangible experience with the brand. They love to see the brand brought to life. We wouldn't do pop-up stores per se, and the reason we don't do pop-up stores is because we think that creates quite a false shopping environment. Our experience is obviously online sales, so that's what we try to drive, but absolutely creating an experience and bringing the brand to life and showcasing that energy and playfulness. That's what we're good at doing, and students is one area that's such an important demographic for us that absolutely we make it our business to ensure that we have a presence on campus. We're just in our final phases, actually, of also recruiting 20 student ambassadors who will be doing some work for us throughout the entire year, which is amazing. And
is that nationally?
That will be nationally. So we'll have a physical presence at a grassroots level on campus across different universities, which is fantastic. And I think our most successful activation that we've had was with Vogue Fashion Night Out last year, where we had the wedding chapel, and we threw down the challenge for customers to demonstrate their love for fashion by marrying their favourite item. And we really only thought there'd be one or two crazy consumers out there who'd go to those links, but we actually officiated hundreds of weddings that night. So it just goes to show people are really keen to interact with the brand.
And Carol from Boohoo, I also know that localization is an important strategy for you guys. You actually, one of the first amazing things that I remember you did is launch an Australia First collection, and that was a specifically tailored collection that was released in the Australian market first, and it was a way for the company to recognise that Australians were trends ahead, I believe was the catchline. And you guys do that everywhere. I mean, Boohoo are on billboards, they're on television advertisements. You see them at, I think there was a music festival. You're constantly sponsoring different events. I know you did the Social Diary Christmas party last year. How important is that localisation to the Boohoo company down under? Because I think Australia's in your top 5 markets as well.
Sure, it's in the top 5. Really, is this working?
Yep.
Can everyone hear me? I think for us, localization is so important because we're based in the north of England, and Australia is the other side of the world. So it's really, really important to have people on the ground here, work very, very closely with your students, with your ambassadors and all of your agencies, and getting that two-way conversation between Australia and the UK has become so important to us. The seasonality plays a huge part, and we're going into summer and you guys are going into winter. So for us, just always being here and always having people on the ground, the feedback that we get is a good understanding of what is going to work in Australia. However, what amazes me is the best sellers are the best sellers, and the trends are the trends, and they're worldwide. And seasonality sometimes doesn't play a part in that. So if I looked at our top 50 things that we're selling, they're selling in London, they're selling in New York, they're selling in Sydney, they're selling in Melbourne. Wow. So that's one side of our business. So fashion is truly global now, which I think it's really why Australia has become such an important market to us, because very, very fashionable here, very fashionable. And what I witnessed when I very first came to Australia a few years ago is the first thing I did was look at the stores. And what I did really look at was obviously your local retail here, but also looking at the international players. And what struck me was on the international players, oh, we've had that 6 months ago. You've got it now. So it occurred to me as, why should you wait? Why are you waiting for the fashion we had in London 6 months ago? I want to give you it ahead of the season, which is where Trend Ahead came in. So what we've started to do is launch the collections in Australia first. It's
and
great,
that's globally.
And that's globally. So some things that we will see in September and October in the UK, we're actually launching those in Australia now. So actually what we're doing is giving the fashion to the Australian market first. You're in autumn-winter 14. We're not in autumn-winter 14 until September. So the hashtag Trend Ahead came about. It was really from a realization as you guys you're shopping online because you actually want global fashion and you want it early and you don't want to wait.
Fantastic. And Andy, I know that you've represented a lot of international retailers in the Australian market. So can you give us an idea of some of the work that you've done and what their expectations are of local consumers and trends here?
Yeah, sure. So I can speak mostly to breaking out international brands to the global market. Honestly, the thirst for the Australian market in the US, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, has been it's been ravenous in the past 5 years. I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of incredible lines that are open to what is required in order to be successful globally as a brand, and being able to kind of work with different retailers and try to bridge the gap between the Southern and Northern Hemisphere has really become a consistent strategy. So I've been working with anywhere from 2 to 5 brands over the past 5 years to help them break into the global market, into major retailers, online retailers, retailers in the UK, Net-a-Porter. And it's been phenomenal. I think just keeping, as designers, I mean, I don't know how many of you here are designers in the Australian market, but just making sure that you're open to the different options and the different suggestions that come to you from the people working in the Northern Hemisphere and globally, being able to provide solutions for production, solutions for weather, solutions to the seasonality. But I do have to agree with you immensely that there's a very, very strong consistency with trends. And we've had the same thing where a trend or a style or a dress or a jacket has been phenomenal in Australia, and it's been across the board globally. So I think Australian market definitely is a little advanced with style, design, structure, silhouettes, and it definitely provides a point of difference to the global market, and that's what everyone's looking for. So to stay true and consistent to that while being able to apply yourself is going to be very valuable.
And this is a question for the whole panel. I mean, we've seen a lot of international retailers open brick and mortar stores, Zara, H&M, Uniqlo, COS is coming shortly as well. But another interesting trend is that a lot of international retailers and a lot of international e-tailers are actually appointing local PR agencies to try and grow their profile here. And, there's the usual suspects like ASOS and Boohoo and Net-a-Porter, but even Neiman Marcus this year appointed PR for the Australian market. And there's talk that Saks and a few of the other UK department stores and US department stores will do the same. Australia is such a small market. Where is this? I mean, the appetite that Australian consumers have for international brands is matched by the appetite that international brands have for Australian customers. What do you credit to that change or to that appetite? Where did it come from?
I think it partly comes from the fact that for a long time international retailers were just overlooking Australia, and then somebody realized actually there's an Australian consumer who buys, to your points, the same jacket, the same dress as the American or as the European consumer, and then they started coming in. If you look at Europe or the US, companies, from other countries coming to these markets, that started way earlier, especially in Europe, and I think it's now just basically catch-up play. I think it's perfectly normal that they have PR agencies, and the Australian market is obviously huge, especially in fashion. So I don't think, we see something we probably would have expected to see over a decade happening now in probably 1 or 2 years.
It's highly concentrated.
It is.
How do you manage the logistics of that? Like in terms of, for instance, your partnerships with River Island and New Look, do you have local warehousing here? Do you have infrastructure that you have to build outside of just a partnership?
Well, we use the existing infrastructure we have. We have a big warehouse in Sydney, 12,500 square meters.
Wow.
We have a big warehouse we just opened in Melbourne, slightly smaller, for free out delivery in Melbourne as well. And we just use that for all partners, including the new brands from international. And
will you be targeting more international partnerships of that nature?
Not necessarily. It's not a strategy of ours to just say we want to go international. Our strategy is basically to have the best product available on the Iconic, whether that comes from Australia or New Zealand or the US or Europe, really doesn't matter. More than half of our sales comes from Australian designers and Australian brands. So they're still more important than the international designers and international brands. But if somebody has great product, then they should sell it on the Iconic.
It's a bit of a plug there. Yeah.
I can speak. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? So just as an example, 5 years ago, most major retailers in the States, Saks, Bloomingdale's, Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom, even some people that have online retailers, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, when they would look at an international brand, they would kind of immediately rule it out because of logistics, as you stated. Anything in regards to shipping, duties, and taxes, it was just an automatic kind of hesitation to review, look at the brand. And I think over the past 3 or 4 years, as Australian brands have kind of broken into the US market in particular, it's opened up an entire avenue for these stores to be able to buy Australian lines, because there's been warehouse establishments in New Jersey, New York, Texas, Los Angeles that are now acting as local distributors for Australian brands. Even though they're not technically a distributor where they buy the goods, they'll host the brand and ship for them. And when they're able to provide this service, it removes all fear or hesitation from these retailers to buy the brand. So I think as that started happening, it kind of allowed for more brands to exist in the States. And then I think from seeing the success with that, as you guys saw the success with it here, that's why they kind of are bringing in PR departments and full teams behind these Australian brands, because the market is just growing at an exponential rate. So I think that we really have to thank and acknowledge those warehouses in the States that are acting as kind of the entity of the Australian or international brands there, and taking charge of all of the logistics and that end of it for them, because without them, a lot of the major retailers wouldn't even be able to look at it. Yeah. So also as a brand, like being open to that and exploring those avenues is really important.
And how important is logistics to offshore retailers like Boohoo and ASOS? Because I noticed another thing that both of you are doing is trying to get the product here as quickly as possible, and also make the returns process very easy. For instance, if you have a return for ASOS and Boohoo, you don't ship it back to the UK. They have local processing centres which are able to do that for you. So you're not copying an international shipping fee, and it's also very easy and seamless. And I think in some instances you can even book a courier to pick it up from your office. So how important is that speed to market proposition for your businesses?
It's It's critical. It's about removing barriers for our consumers as to why they should choose online retailing over potentially bricks and mortar retailing. So we have to make it as convenient as possible. It's a critical component to our service proposition, and we're up against competitors who can deliver in 3 hours. So the more that we can provide in terms of quickness of delivery, and everyone recognises that moment that your parcel arrives is just an inexplicable joy at opening the box of the silver parcels. So the quicker that we can gratify our customers in that way, the better, and we'll be constantly trying to innovate in that space.
Does ASOS have any local warehousing in Australia in terms of
not in terms of distribution, it's full returns.
So how do you compete with that 3-hour proposition? Because I think the Iconic was the first to offer 3-hour shipping within Melbourne or within Sydney.
Well, on a like-for-like basis, we can't compete with it. So we have to ensure that other components to our proposition are stronger. So, you know, from our perspective, what we understand about our customers is that the choice, you know, there's just so much choice, sometimes too much choice. We have to be very we have to carefully select and make sure we surface the kinds of products and brands and stories that we just know will resonate with our customers. But choice is a huge one, and we'll just keep doing what we do best, which is provide newness, fashionable options at a really affordable price, and deliver it with the most engaging user experience we can, and that's what keeps us focused.
And is that the same for Boohoo?
It's very much the same, just to mirror all of those comments, really. You know, e-commerce, it's becoming a service industry. So you've got to have the right fashion, you've got to have the key prices, you've got to have everything. You've got to make it easy for your customer. But then she's got to be happy that she gets a parcel on time, on her terms, when she's expecting it. And of course, coming all the way from the UK, that has its challenges, because you're very much relying on third-party logistics businesses to do that part of the job for you. So partnering with the right people for us is become really important. That we've got, you know, the right logistic companies on board with us, and we're working with them. And it's really that communication then to the customer is really paramount. If there's a problem with the delivery, it's always, you know, your customer services, which is another great thing in Boohoo that we have as these teams. Social for us is huge, but social media communication with the customer services team has become really, really important, because they're expecting a parcel before midday and it hasn't come. They're on social. But it's fantastic when you work well with your logistic partners and you work well on social media, you can change what could have become a grumbly customer because your parcel's 1 hour late into a brand advocate by saying, right, okay, see, we're on it. And that's become really, really important to us. And I think for e-commerce businesses internationally, marketing, I would say they're the big challenges ahead. It's not just about having the right fashion anymore and the right trends. It's about having all those services that sit alongside it.
Yeah. And Boohoo is such a young company. It boggles the mind to think it only launched in 2006 and just floated for £580 million. I mean, of course you're laughing all the way to the bank. What are some of the things that you want to introduce with this new funding? I mean, in terms of your fashion, PR and marketing initiatives, not just here but internationally, because I know international sales are an important part of the business, as well as your UK sales, which are holding incredibly strong despite the economic crisis in Europe.
Well, it's just great to have some money in the bank, number one. You know, we set up the business just over 7 years ago, but my business partner and myself have been in the industry for a very long time. And the intelligence that we shared was really working with the whole of the British High Street for many, many years. So although Boohoo has just floated for quite a large sum of money, the intelligence that sat behind it, it doesn't feel like a 7-year journey. It feels more like a 25-year journey to get to this point. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, not many people will actually know that. It is a baby business, but it's born out of our other trading businesses that we had before. So what are we going to do with some of this money? We're going to invest in warehousing. We're investing in new markets. We're investing in teams. What it does give us by becoming a public business is a much higher profile, and we can now attract the best in the industry.
That's fantastic. And where do you see the Australian market going? This is a question for the whole panel, over the coming years, because I know that, you know, retail trade suffered pretty heavily post-global financial crisis. We got through the global financial crisis just fine. And then the period following that, there was a slump in Australian retail, but a lot of retail analysts predict that 2014 will be a much brighter year for the sector. Where do you guys see the market going?
For us, I think we look at it with cautious optimism. I think that's a term that a lot of retailers will use, but we've had fantastic growth here in the Australian market, and obviously Australia seemed to ride the GBC storm pretty well. So we're focused on delivering continued strong double-digit year-on-year growth. We're focused on growing our market share in spite of the recent increase in entrance into the market. And, you know, we're going to do that through focusing, always focusing on our customer and what makes them tick, but in terms of understanding really how they interact with our brand through technology. We're going to be a mobile-first company. We are a mobile-first company. We need to increasingly get in that space. And the more that we can anticipate how our customers interact with the brand through utilising technology, I think the better we'll fare.
Can you give us an insight into some of the things that you have planned specifically for 2014? Aside from the university ambassadors, which is a great initiative.
Yeah, I mean, it's live. You know, we'll follow the calendar, as you'd expect of any retailer throughout the year. There'll just be more from us, I think, in a mobile innovation space, so watch that space there. Social is so critical to our success as well, so we'll continue to innovate there. And for us, it's a blended approach. We must remain true to what our baseline proposition is. So, you know, the hygiene factors of ensuring we have the right product mix at the right time of the year for our girls at the right price is always going to be forefront to what we do. But it can't be the only thing, because you won't maintain a leadership position if that's all it is. Excuse me. So mobile and technology will continue to be at the forefront of what we want to deliver in terms of creating effortless retailing for our customer. And CRM is another sort of area in which, from our perspective, we're still a new company. We're still growing really well and bringing new customers onto the base. But increasingly, we've now had, you know, wonderful loyal supporters with us right from the beginning, which means they've been with us for over 2.5 years. And so it's increasingly important that we talk to each of those cohorts and the segments on our base in a really relevant, appropriate way. So there'll be more focus as well on that CRM side.
Interesting. And what about the Iconic? What more can we expect from you guys? Constantly launching new things to market?
Well, I'll address the easier question, the question on the market first. It's hard to say how, in general, Australian retail will go in 2014, but I think one thing is for sure, online retail, especially fashion online retail, really has a lot of potential. I read the other day that about 5.6% of the fashion dollars spent in Australia are actually spent online. That's 5.6. In the UK, I think it's about 11 to 12%, and I think the same is true for the US and Germany. So there really is no reason why the Australian consumer shouldn't buy less online than the UK or the US or the German consumer. But there is obviously that the fact that he or she does. So I think that illustrates what potential really lies in online in Australia. And we're obviously all trying to potentialize on that this year. What we're going to be doing this year, to be honest, it's very much the same as ASOS. It is getting the fundamentals right, which is always about great product, great selection, convenience, for example, delivery, and price. And then on top of that, you need some great innovations. And it's no secret that mobile is absolutely paramount for a business like ours. Right now, almost 50% of our sales come from mobile. Wow. So we want to invest more into the mobile experience. You know, mobile sites and apps have always been developed as a secondary channel. for most companies. And I think, you know, when you really think mobile first, you have to think of mobile as a primary channel. And that means a lot to, you know, how you design your website, how you interact with your customers, because mobile is a very different experience. On top of that, we have a couple of innovations when it comes to delivery, and we are working on a couple of very exciting brand launches, which I can't talk about right now.
Just give us one.
International and local, but we're certainly working very hard for 2014.
One.
I'll think about it and I'll let you know later.
Okay, cool. Andy?
Sure. So I guess I'll continue to speak more, you know, towards designers and what they can do to kind of expand in 2014 in the global marketplace. But I definitely think in regards to technological advances, as you guys touched on, you know, being open to the evolving technology in fashion, being open to companies such as Your, New Order, those kind of, I don't know if anyone's heard of those, but they're order processing systems where you're able to kind of plant your brand online and provide access to wholesalers to view your collections and view your range and see what you're doing and look at your press. I think that that's going to open up and make the world, continually make the world smaller in regards to wholesale. I think being able to respond quickly to, you know, continuing on to the whole cautious wavelength. Everyone is still buying very cautiously in the States. They're buying safe, they're buying secure, they're seeing what sells and wanting demand after that, so being open to quick turnarounds. I know that, you know, all of you guys are able to kind of apply to that, but as a wholesaler, being able to watch what trends are working and what trends are not only wholesaling but then selling retail is very important to making sure that that these stores and retailers feel confident in building and growing a relationship with everyone. So I think just staying in touch globally, trying to get your brand out there as much as possible, and I think it's just going to continue to expand the Australian market in the US and internationally.
And Carol?
How do I follow all of that? It's pretty much all those initiatives we're also working on. Just to really add to it, I think for us as a brand, because really we are the newbies, I would say it's getting for us this year a lot more understanding as the consumer here in the Australian consumer. Is very, very important that we really understand the social calendar here. We are relevant in our proposition, so that's strengthening it. That's working maybe with an Australian design team, Australian stylists, bringing Australians maybe into the UK, bringing our UK office into Australia more often, and it's really getting that alignment with what we're doing with British fashion and really making that work here. And my observation in the last 12 months is that we can do that a lot better than we're currently doing. So there's room for improvement, which is, you know, that's a great opportunity. It's a great challenge to have. It's just to be constantly improving the proposition we have. I have recognized just this week that that there's you know, prices and the local retail have come back because obviously we're at the lower end of the market, the value end of the market, unlike these guys who are selling more of your brands. So it's really important that we get our proposition right, we have our pricing right, we have the right product at the right price. So for us, it's just getting the next 12 months ahead is really having a much better understanding and making all the improvements to make sure that we're truly relevant to the market.
So will that mean a change in pricing structure, or just you know, increasing your competitiveness in other areas like trends and speed to market? And
well, I think at Boohoo, what we do really well is the size of the collection. It's ever changing. We have something like 500 new styles every week.
Wow.
So it's not, we don't necessarily have to be realigning the price points, because actually what we do is work on our proposition, which is very, very strong and ever changing. And I think what's great with Australia is they recognize this. They recognize the fact that, you know, you come onto Boohoo and you'll find a new collection every time you come on. The first pages of New In, they've been visually merchandised, so they're relevant to your climate that day, they're relevant to the trends that are happening, they're relevant to the social diary here. So we're very much aligning everything that's going on, and we're doing that from the UK. I think what will happen is we'll start needing the Australians really in the UK office to really give us a hand with that. So there's not so much price alignment because we're already at the value end of the market, so we don't have to do very much there. What we need to do is just getting more relevant product to you guys in your coming into autumn winter as we're going into summer. So that's always a challenge. Okay. And just to add to that, what we do as a business is we do lots and lots of trials. And that's been really well received globally, because I think what we do is it's 95% of everything we have is Boohoo own brand. So we are just, we are Boohoo, we don't carry any of the brands. So what we have is a really high level of exclusivity. So this is really where we have carved out our own position at the value end of the market, is there's lots of small quantities at great value prices. So just to give an example, we'll have, and it's been really, I'll give you this example because it's really well received here. We may produce 300 of a particular dress, and it's 30 Australian dollars. So that's a 30 Australian dollar dress exclusively worldwide. So it's a proposition that we acknowledge as really different, because everybody else who is at the value end of the market are pilot high. They're driving huge volumes. We're driving huge volumes, but across many, many styles.
That's great. That's a great competitive advantage.
It is, yeah.
Just a quick note, anyone who's going to the first show, Hariono Satyarthi, there's a shuttle bus service leaving now. But excitingly, we also have Cotton Australia, who are going to announce an exciting initiative that we're working on. So I want to thank the speakers and welcome Cotton Australia to the stage. Please come on board.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having us here at the RAGTRADER seminar this morning. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Gadigal Nation, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are here today. Cotton Australia is really excited to be involved in Fashion Week for the first time in many years. Many moons ago, we sponsored the Young Designer Parades here at Fashion Week, and we gave a scholarship to a designer doing great things in cotton. And then the drought hit in New South Wales and Queensland, the worst drought we'd seen in 100 years. And our relationship with the Australian fashion and textile sector really changed. Unfortunately, we had to pull back on some things that we were doing to position cotton as a fibre of choice in your industry. Things are looking up now, which is great. In fact, our growers are out there right now harvesting a 4 million bale crop, which is not quite a record, but it's pretty close. And that means we're able to look at some new programs to tell the story of Australian cotton. And that's really why we're here today. This is our first foray into the world of fashion and textiles for a really long time. So just a little bit about Cotton Australia. Cotton Australia represents Australia's 1,200 cotton farmers. There are 1,200 spread across New South Wales and Queensland, and the majority are family farms. Mums and dads, brothers, sisters, kids. And they grow lots of things, cotton being the main summer crop, and they also grow crops during the winter time, as well as raising cattle, sometimes sheep, lots of things. So what we really want to talk to you about today is an exciting new initiative that Cotton Australia is involved with, and it's called Cotton Leads. It's a partnership between the US cotton industry and the Australian cotton industry. And really, it's about recognising that cotton growers in these countries are the best at the world in producing sustainable, high-quality crops for the world's textile markets. Now, over the last 20 years, our cotton growers have been out there on their farms quietly beavering away and developing their sustainability credentials, to the point now that Australia's cotton growers are recognised as the most sustainable in the world. We are the most water efficient. We produce 3 times as much cotton for the same amount of land as anywhere else in the world. We're using 95% less pesticides than we did 15 years ago. We look after our workers, and we're constantly looking for ways to reduce the inputs that go into producing bales of cotton that eventually turn into yarn and fibres, yarn and fabrics and finished products. And on top of all of that, our growers produce incredibly high quality crops. Some of the longest, strongest, whitest, contamination-free cotton in the world. And that's why we sell every bale we produce every year. Now, as we all know, there's been a renewed emphasis placed on corporate social responsibility in the world of textiles and design, and as it should be. And Cotton Australia believes that that responsibility belongs to everybody in the supply chain, right through from the farmers to the processors of cotton, the ones who make the bales, the ones who ship it, the manufacturers, right through to the finished products when they're delivered to the marketplace. And I guess what Cotton Australia can offer with Cotton Lees is some assurances to companies in the world that are interested in their corporate social responsibility and who want to be able to say that they're using responsibly produced inputs. Cotton Australia can't control what happens at every step of the supply chain, but we can be responsible for what happens on our farms, in our gins, right up to the point where cotton is delivered to a spinning mill, and that happens mainly for us in Southeast Asia. We can offer these assurances to designers, retailers, brand owners and spinning mills that sign up to the Cotton Leads program. Cotton Australia and Cotton Incorporated in the US have been out in the marketplace now for the last 3 or 5 months, telling the world's brand owners about Cotton Leads. And so far we have 130 partners signed up to the program around the world. Some are in Europe, some in China and other parts of Asia, and some in the United States as well. And we've got some of the big names like Brooks Brothers, Fruit of the Loom, Tesco and Tex Hong Textile Group, who are enormous users of cotton and who have recognised that the Cotton Leads program can offer them responsibly produced cotton into their supply chains. Now, we're really excited about that, and we think there's also a great opportunity for Australia's brand owners and retailers to jump on board this program and to show that they're serious about their corporate social responsibility by specifying Australian and US cotton in their supply chains. Cotton Leads is free to join. It's a very simple process, and it doesn't mean that a brand owner or a retailer is held to any kind of quotas or conditions. It really means that they are publicly making a commitment to specify cottons that come from a responsible source. There are lots of identity cotton programs out there in the world, and you've probably heard of some. Cotton Made in Africa is one, the Better Cotton Initiative is another, and they're all good. And they're good because what they're about is promoting cotton against our biggest competitor, and that is synthetic fibres. We think we've got a great story to tell about naturally produced fibres grown out in the weather rather than grown in a factory where an oil tanker pulls up at one end and spits out clothes at the other. And the world wants naturally produced fibres. Cotton is still the #1 natural fibre in the world with about 30% of the market. And to put that in context, wool's about 1%. But unfortunately, that share is falling, and we really need to do something about that to support our growers and also to have them recognised for the environmental work that they've been doing for many, many years. We're looking for partners to stand shoulder to shoulder with our farmers out there to tell the story of Australian cotton. It's high quality, it's beautifully produced, the world wants it, it's consistent, we're close to our markets, and it's grown by family farmers who are doing it better than anywhere else in the world. It's a great story, and so we're looking for partners who also have a great story to tell about their sustainability and who want to make a statement about their corporate social responsibility and who are serious about where their garments are made and overcoming issues of dangerous work conditions, child labour and so forth, and who are looking further down the supply chain and want to understand where their raw materials are actually produced. We believe at the end of the day this will help sell products, it will help sell a story about a brand, and it will also support one of Australia's best agricultural industries. So we're putting an invitation out there to any brand owner, retailer, designer who is interested in signing up to a Cotton Leads partnership. We'll come and sit down with you, we'll have a chat, answer any questions, and then hopefully sign you up to the program, which means you will specify Australian and US cotton in your supply chain. We're pretty new to this, and today marks the start of what we hope will be a great learning opportunity on both sides. By starting a conversation about sustainability, we hope to improve the standards of cotton production all over the world. It's an ambitious goal, and it's one we think that is achievable in the longer term if we work together. So thanks for your time today. We really appreciate the opportunity, and we're very pleased to have sponsored the seminar this morning. So if anyone is interested in having a chat to us about the Cotton Leads program or about the Australian cotton industry in general, then come and see us after the seminar. Thank you.